Hey, good evening, everyone. It's CJ, aka Carlos. Hopefully, everyone's having a fantastic evening so far. It is Friday, December the 2nd, and just wanted to do a quick kind of recap of the events unfolding. So earlier today, Elon Musk had put out a tweet informing everyone that he was going to be releasing the details of the Twitter Biden article censorship in regards to the Biden laptop. Been listening to a Twitter Spaces hangout, Kim.com. I can't remember who the original host is, but been on it now for it was a good hour. I think that I was listening to it, and they've had some very good conversations, anticipating, waiting for the release of the Twitter files, the Hunter Biden files. And basically what Elon did was entrust Matt Taibbi, who is a very good journalist. He's been on Joe Rogan. He's been on numerous podcasts before. He's really a stand-up journalist, does a great job of reporting a lot of information. But before we jump into that, I think, and I've stated this before on my podcast, on the live stream, that what in terms of lining this up is that you really have to frame this into a few different perspectives to look at, one of which is always the timing of the release of this. And people are saying, well, why did he wait till after the midterms? Why is this taking place right now? Well, I think one was obviously the information gathering had to take place within probably the numerous emails, the communication, everything from the time that Musk took over Twitter. And at this point, Raven asked the question, which I think is still up in the air right now. Raven asked the question, who is Elon Musk? Is he a friend or foe? Because a lot of people look at Neuralink and everything. So I totally get that perspective. And I stated this before on podcasts, I think we have to, at this point, kind of trust, but also verify at this point in regards to what Musk is doing. And releasing this files and going forth with this information and what he's doing with Twitter, I think is a couple different perspectives. Now, everyone remembers this because we covered this specifically. Why would he at this time release this information in regards to Hunter Biden? Why is this important? Let me remind everyone. Let me go to my screen share. I'm doing this solo, so sometimes it's a little bit difficult as far as managing. You're going to see me probably twice for a little bit. So it's going to do one of these funky things like this. But let's remember that not too long ago, that White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre stated specifically when asked about Twitter that the Biden administration will, quote unquote, continue to monitor. So, and there were a lot of questions as to, well, what does that specifically mean? So let's play this soundbite because I think it's important. It's very important. And watch an ad pop up on me.
There's never been a better time to get away.
So we'll let this ad flow through real quick. I probably should have pulled the video up on a different channel. Probably should have went straight to YouTube, but it's a quick ad. It'll start playing her when she was asked specifically about Twitter. So here we go.
A question about Twitter. There's a researcher at Stanford who says that this is a critical moment, really, in terms of ensuring that Twitter does not become a vector for misinformation. I mean, are you concerned about Elon Musk says there's more and more subscribers coming online. Are you concerned about that? And what tools do you have? Who is it at the White House that is really keeping track of this?
So look, this is something that we're certainly keeping an eye on. And we have always been very clear, and that when it comes to social media platforms, it is their responsibility to make sure that when it comes to misinformation, when it comes to the hate that we're seeing, that they take action, that they continue to take action. Again, we're all keeping a close eye on this. We're all monitoring what's currently occurring, and we see it with our own eyes of what you all are reporting. And just for ourselves what's happening on Twitter. But again, social media companies have a responsibility to prevent their platforms from being used by any user to incite violence, especially violence directed at individual communities, as we have been seeing. And the president has been very clear on calling that out. He'll continue to do that. And we're going to continue to monitor the situation. Go ahead.
Okay, so, and they constantly do that, right? They constantly do that where they will utilize, things that are common sense, right? We don't want to leverage these social media platforms to incite violence, specifically target individuals. They always use that, but in the background of the information is that they're leveraging these platforms to really control information. Is what it boils down to. That's why it takes place. So yes, they put up on the surface the I'm going to call them the ruling class. Let's just say that the ruling class on the surface puts out this, that hey, we're doing this for the good people. We're doing it for the good of people, of humanity, kind of like the Patriot Act, right? This is the Patriot Act. They always use these feel good terms to define these draconian policies. So this is one example of why I think Elon Musk did what I'm going to call a preemptive strike against the ruling class, is because Elon potentially saw that we're kind of undefined, right? That we're gonna keep our eye on Twitter. We're gonna really keep an eye, and we know that before that previous administration. Look at Parler. Parler's a perfect example where Apple and I believe also Google removed Parler from their downloads, which is very significant. So there potentially could have been a possibility. Now Elon put out a tweet. This was just a day ago, and thanked Tim Cook for taking him around Apple's beautiful headquarters and stating specifically that they worked out an agreement that Apple was not out to take Twitter down off of their app store, their platform. Maybe Elon took him at his word and said, okay, that's fine. I'm glad that's not going to take place. Maybe even Elon shared with him that, hey, look, I'm moving forward with some information. I just want to give you a heads up. And someone of that nature, like Tim Cook, would probably appreciate that someone would share with them something, the information that's going to be released. Now, interestingly enough, let's fast forward to what took place last night. Let me add this into the stream. I didn't realize I had it in there. So here's where Elon tweeted out a day ago. I want to thank Tim Cook for taking me around to Apple's beautiful headquarters, where apparently they agreed that, hey, look, Tim Cook said, hey, look, Elon, we're not even considering taking Twitter, off our app store. We're not sure where that came from, all that kind of good stuff. I'm not going to rehash what I just said. But let's also keep in mind the recent state dinner that took place last night. The guest list of people who were there for the state dinner for Macron, who was visiting. Gosh, those pictures are just telling, very telling. Tim Cook was there. He was invited. He was one of the 300 guests that attended that state dinner for Macron. So there's obviously reason for concern as to the relationship that Apple has with the government. For that matter, all the tech oligarchs, all the tech giant companies. We found out information not too long ago on when Mark Zuckerberg decided to jump on Joe Rogan, and he explained their information as to why that they specifically censored the entire story. So here's what Zuckerberg had to say. So let's play this, because I think it ties directly into this entire Twitter and understanding the magnitude that these tech giants play into social and basically programming what people think, almost kind of replacing mainstream media. So here he goes.
People who can make these decisions, and it's not just like one private company that's making decisions even about what just happens on our platform.
How do you guys handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial? Like there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post.
We have that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. Basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third party fact checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically um, being determined whether it was false. Um, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
It got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely,
By what
They
percentage?
throttled it. They
I
throttled
don't
it.
know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But I mean, but basically, a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper political issue. So depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But
Right.
we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement, if they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say?
Okay, so again, and I think it says a lot in regards to where we have arrived in our country. We're basically witnessing that we say on Rogue a lot is that we've arrived at a fascist state, and most people don't truly understand what that means. That means that basically we're witnessing the merger of government and corporations, and that's exactly what has taken place. And you're not only seeing it from political, you're seeing it from the ruling class. You're seeing it here with the FBI, who's saying, hey, look, be wary of this, even though that it was very well vetted, even though the New York Post had already ran an article. And let's face it, how many years has the New York Post been in circulation that it has a lot of credibility, but yet it was censored. It was deemed false news or bogus news. And in fact, the FBI reached out to Facebook and said, hey, by the way, this is probably Russian generated material. So again, framing this up into looking at it at a bigger picture, because even though we're going to talk about Biden specifically, the lot larger, bigger conversation is how government agencies collude with the social media companies to basically control the information and to violate First Amendment rights. We witnessed it through election and election manipulation. Let's not also forget that there were many accredited doctors, many experts who were completely deplatformed because they had a counter narrative in what Fauci and the government wanted us to believe with COVID, right? So this is big. This is a lot bigger than Biden. This is a lot bigger than Musk. This is the true test and the war for your mind, the war to control the narrative and information that comes to us and what people truly believe. And that's why this conversation is just so important. So I do want to give credit at this point to Elon Musk for releasing this information. Time will tell what takes place with it. But however, again, let's not mince words here. This goes much bigger than Hunter Biden or Joe Biden. This is the collusion of big tech and government agencies to basically control information and what they want people to perceive and believe. I'll give you another perfect example: the war in Ukraine. What happened with RT, Russian television? Completely deplatformed, removed from App Store, taken off of Twitter. Why? Because the apparatus of the control mechanism of the class don't want us to have a counter narrative of what's happening in Ukraine. So a multitude of things that we can look at, and I hope that makes sense to everyone. It should at this point. So let's jump forward. So Elon Musk shared earlier today that he was going to be releasing the files. I think it was a smart move on his part not to dump them himself. He handed those out to Matt Taibbi. I recommend everyone to follow Matt Taibbi on Twitter. He's a great journalist. You can subscribe to his Substack. So he started releasing all the information that came down. I'll go through quite a few. It's pretty lengthy, so you can see through my tweet. I'm sorry to be scrolling through the screen so fast. So this started at about an hour ago with the release of the Twitter files, number 1. And then literally from there, he started breaking down all the things that were involved internally within Twitter in regards to the Biden story and what took place. I'm going to find the thread here. Give me just one moment. I'm going to find the thread real quick. So this is thread 1, and it breaks down, and I have to go back. So I apologize. I'm going back and forth. So basically how it starts is the thread is at 1, here are the Twitter files. So 2, what you're about to read is the first installment in a series based upon thousands of internal documents obtained by sources at Twitter. 3, the Twitter file tell an incredible story from inside of one of the world's largest and most influential social media platforms. It's a Frankensteinian tale of a human-built mechanism growing out of the control of the designer. 4, Twitter is the conception was a brilliant tool for enabling instant mass communication, making a true real-time global conversation possible for the first time. 5, in early conception, Twitter more than lived up to its mission statement, giving people the power to create and share ideas, information instantly without barriers. 6, as time progressed, however, the company was slowly forced to add to those barriers. Some of the first tools for controlling speech were designed to combat the likes of spam and financial fraudsters. 7, slowly over time, Twitter staff and executives began finding out more and more uses for these tools. Outsiders began petitioning the company to manipulate speech as well. First a little, then more often, then constantly. Point 8, by 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were more routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team. The reply would come back was handled. So here's an insider communication of Twitter to Twitter from the Biden team. And these are specific tweets that they wanted Twitter to look at and to remove or throttle or delete. One of them looked like it says Jared 879. I'm not sure if that's Jared Kushner, probably not. But these are tweets that they said, hey, look at these tweets, take them down. This specifically came down from the Biden team. So it doesn't get more obvious than that. Then we go to point number 9. Celebrities and unknown alike could be removed or reviewed at the behest of a political party. And again, here's the largest, and this came from the DNC on October 25th, 2020. I grabbed the first one under SI, deferred to safety on the high-profile second one. So they would use these things as far as safety protocols in regards to misinformation, targeting specific individuals. And this came from the DNC. The DNC said, hey, look, is there anything you can do with James Woods? Because he was pretty actively tweeting a lot of information. And I think at one time, James Woods was actually blocked completely from Twitter and removed. So again, this just exposes the collusion of big tech. These are a little bit out of order because it goes into the actual emails. So it looks like Matt has been involved from quite a bit, going back into when the actual story broke and when they started suppressing the content. So we're going to leave here from this last bullet point, and we're going to jump back to Matt Taibbi's actual Twitter. He cut that stream. It would have been nice if he just would have stayed within that, but it's okay because again, there's just lots of information, and this is still happening in real time. This information is still being released, so it's pretty extensive. Okay, so here we go. Number 18. Twitter took extraordinary steps to suppress a story, removing links and posting warnings that it may be unsafe. They even blocked its transmission via direct message. And what specifically he's referring to is this article. This is the article that came forth on October 14th, 2020. The New York Post published Biden's secret emails and exposed based on the contents of Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop, which exposed basically the Ukraine situation. That Hunter was appointed to the board of directors with a Ukrainian company, even though he had no experience in doing so, paid a healthy sum of money to do so, to the tunes of millions of dollars, with a certain percentage cut going to the big guy. And who's the big guy? Well, we pretty much know who that individual is, right? With Joe Biden. So this story ran from the New York Post, was blocked completely from Twitter. Zuckerberg alluded to a little bit when the FBI said, hey, look, by the way, there's some bad Russian information that may be coming out. We want to make you aware of it, that they throttled this story. So this is direct election interference. And whether it's a Republican or Democrat, it's un-American. It shouldn't be taking place in our country, regardless of who the person or candidate is, no matter how much you hate or dislike them. This shouldn't take place. The American public should deem what they believe and what they shouldn't believe if the story is not true. That's up to the individual. I already covered 18. Twitter again took a look at this information and said, well, how are we going to handle this? So on the 19th, White House spokeswoman Kelly McEnany, she was the spokesperson, and she was locked out of her Twitter account because she commented about the story. I think she even tweeted it out, and she was blocked from her Twitter. So at the time, the actual one of the representatives from the administration it sent an email to Twitter saying, hey, look, all she did was cite the story firsthand reporting that has been reported by other outlets and not distributed by the Biden campaign. I need an answer and immediately of when will she will be unlocked from sharing that. So again, this is specifically how they started taking place and to manipulate the election. Let's go to point. How did I do that? I'm sorry. This was going in a different order. Now it's going backwards. Okay, so here we go. So, number 20. This led public policy executive Caroline Strom to send out a polite "what the fuck" moment query to several employees noted within, because there was actually people within Twitter that were like kind of questioning this a little bit. We're saying, "Hey, team, can we take a closer look here?" Because I think people were they were starting to question it. Like, are we doing the right thing here? Should we really be doing these things or not? And that's specifically where that came from. Strom's note returned the answer to the laptop story had begun. Point number 21. Strom's note returned the answer that the laptop story had been removed for violation of the company's quote unquote hacked materials policy. And this is what she said. Hi, Caroline. Thanks for reaching out to us. Per checking, the user was bounced by site integrity for violation of our hack materials policy. Adding them here for further insights and guidance. Thank you. So again, Twitter had an actual team that was reviewing this information that was coming forth in real time. Point 22. Although several sources recalled hearing about a quote unquote general warning from federal law enforcement that summer about possible foreign hacks, there's no evidence that I've seen of any government involvement in the laptop story. In fact, that might have been the problem. Point 23. The decision was made at the highest levels of the company, but without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey, with former head of legal policy and trust, Vijay Gade, I'm butchering her name up, playing a key role in that decision. And everybody probably remembers the interview that Tim Pool, Vijay, and Jack Dorsey had on Joe Rogan when they took them to task on this. Point 24. They just freelanced it, is how one former employee characterized the decision. Quote unquote, hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone realized that wasn't going to hold, but no one had the guts to reverse it. So they knew internally, that, hey, we fucked up here. We screwed up here, and we screwed up majorly, but we can't do anything about that. Point 25, you see the confusion in the following lengthy exchange ends up with including Gade and former trust and safety chief Yoel Roth, comms director at Trenton Kennedy writes, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for making this as unsafe. Again, coming from the New York Post, trying to understand that this is internal communication, where they wrote, quote unquote, Trenton Kennedy, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for making this unsafe. And I think it's unexplainably argumentative for the externally would be that we're waiting to understand if this story is a result of hack materials We'll face hard questions on this if we don't have some kind of solid reasoning for marking the link unsafe. Then it goes to who they copied, yada, yada, yada. Katie Rosborough said, we will mark similar stories unsafe, because obviously there were several stories that were leaking out during that point of what was taking place. Point 26. By this point, everyone, quote unquote, knew that this was fucked, said one former employee, but the response was essentially to err on the side of continuing to err. So they did nothing about it, basically. Point 27, former VP of Global Comms, Brendan Borman asked, can we truthfully claim that this is part of the policy? 29, to which former Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker again seems to advise staying the non-course because, quote unquote, caution is warranted. Point 29, a fundamental problem with tech companies and content moderation. Many struggle to change of speech, care a little bit about speech, and have to be told the basics by outsiders. Point 30, in one humorous exchange on day one, Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna reaches out to God and gently suggests that she hop on the phone to talk about the backlash of speech, free speech. She was the only Democrat to respond and basically ask and express concern over the suppression of that article. So again, I'm not going to read these all because it's again, this is still happening in real time. There's several still that are coming out. I encourage everyone because again, this is a little bit going through and these is just very time consuming, and I think everyone should read this kind of firsthand of what they're getting from it. I'm going to post the link here real quick to Matt Taibbi's Twitter, so you can go through and read all those things, because it's it's just very interesting to see this information coming out. But at the very minimum, you have to understand here, there was direct manipulation that occurred at the highest level. The names, I was, again, in the Google Spaces chat I was listening to, one of the commentators made a very valuable point as to there's no names that are associated with this of who communicated from DC, like specific individuals who requested things to take place. Personally, I think that that's responsible at this point, because releasing this information like that, if you have individuals' names and put it in the public space, you could potentially look at defamation lawsuits, slander. I'm not an attorney, don't pretend to be one. But I think that's why some of the names were omitted in regards to some of the individuals that are requesting this. I think what this is doing is kind of putting the basis of foundation out there for you can't stop this now, right? You can't stop this information. It's out there. This isn't where they can say WikiLeaks or Julian Assange, God bless him, and hopefully he gets released. This is out in the public sphere now. So now it's up to the legislatures, and it's going to happen, to take this information, to begin the process and putting a subpoena out there for Jack Dorsey, for some of these executives, to bring them in and have the documents, subpoena the documents from Twitter that actually will have the names, that the names won't be redacted from the communication, so that we can begin the process of understanding who made the attempts to manipulate and to alter the outcome of elections. Everyone knows this. If this wouldn't have been suppressed, let's think about it. So this is the story of Hunter Biden's laptop was suppressed by Twitter, Facebook, about anyone. People were banned, people were removed. And so this definitely played a part in my opinion, my personal opinion, of rigging the election. And again, I want a preference. I don't care if it was a Democrat or Republican or Libertarian. It's completely wrong. This collusion to hide and curtail information from the people is just so unjust. These things should not be happening in our republic and in the United States. These things can't take place. And I guarantee you that it happens on both sides, right? It does. Okay. It's we need to see past this, the Hunter Biden thing. Yes, I know that's on the surface, and yes, we need to look at it, but there's a lot bigger picture here. And I stated this at the beginning. The bigger picture is how tech giants are working directly hand in hand with the apparatus, the oligarchs in Washington, D.C., several of the government agencies. I named several times that this has taken place, right? Not only with the election, also with COVID policies, with the situation taking place in Ukraine. There is a war for your mind. There is a war for your mind. And they understand that one of the only places that they have success and that they succeed is in the public sphere of opinion. And that therefore they leverage these tech companies to control opinions, to manipulate what people think, what people do. And it's completely wrong. This is not acceptable. So many things need to take place from here. Yes, there needs to be some congressional hearings taking a look at this. I think some individuals need to take some legal action individually as well. Hopefully, the New York Times or New York Post, whose story was completely censored, hopefully they legally get involved as well. And why I state this is important, because I think that, and again, I'm very hesitant about getting government involved in more, even potentially even more regulation, because I'm not a fan of regulation at all. But I think at minimum, we could probably look at some antitrust legislation, in particular with Google, with it's the alphabet company, Google, and then also with Meta. There's no reason that Meta should be owning Facebook, Instagram, and then also WhatsApp. There's no reason that Google should be owning most of the search engines, most of the search results with the Google Cloud, everything that they do. But again, it's a difficult thing to crack because of the influence, because of the money, because of the culture of corruption that exists in our country. And it truly is a culture. V and I were joking the other day, because it seems like all the really bad actors get away with all the high crimes, and they completely get away with it. But I told V, we were joking the other day, that it's almost like in our country that if you're not lying, cheating, or committing fraud, then you're doing something wrong. Oh, it's just that way. And I want to share. Let me see if I got one other article to share. I do have one other. This is why this is also very important. Okay, because they're not stopping. Okay, it's not like they look at this as a slap on the wrist and they said, "Up, we're guilty. We got caught. We're no longer going to do this." They're going to continue moving these draconian things moving forward. And so we don't want the next event to unfold and all this information being suppressed. In fact, let me bring this into stream. This is comes from the Defender, which is part of the Children's Health Defense Fund, RFK Jr., and the wonderful work that him and his team do over there. But this is what's ahead of us. So they're not stopping. They're moving this completely forward. So this is dated November 30th, just a few days ago. So this is literally grotesque. This is Google, YouTube are set to invest $12 million in a quote-unquote global fact-checking media network. Reacting to Tuesday's announcement that Google and YouTube will fund a global fact-checking network through the Media Institute Pointer, media expert Mark Crispin Miller, PhD, said this is grotesque, almost to the point of comedy, except for it's not funny. And here's what this goes on to say in regards to their efforts. Claiming that combating misinformation is an ongoing global challenge for society, Google and YouTube on Tuesday said they will spend $12 million to create a global fact-check fund that will support a network of 135 fact-checking organizations operating from 65 countries in more than 80 languages. The money is part of a $13.5 million grant the tech companies awarded to the Institutional Fact-Checking Network, IFCN, a division of the nonprofit Media Institute Pointer, according to Mashable. The money will go towards scaling up the existing operations at Pointer's IFCN and also toward launching new initiatives to elevate what the IFCN deems to be, quote unquote, information and reduce it what it deems to be, quote unquote, misinformation, Mashable reported. Quote unquote, here we go. The world needs fact checking more than ever before, said Baders Orsic, executive director of the IFCN. Quote unquote, this partnership with Google and YouTube infuses financial support to global fact checkers and is a step in the right direction. I'm going to put this link up real quick in the chat so you guys can go read it yourself and then also share it. But this is the danger ahead. This is what we're dealing with, and I think that we all have to do our part to understand, why they're doing this at this particular time, because they can't afford to have humanity wake up. They can't afford to have humanities to remove themselves from the shackles that we've all been a part of in regards to the legacy bought and paid for U.S. media, the tech oligarchs who are basically attempting to control every bit of information. And either we have to unplug from the matrix, unplug from this system, and support alternative networks that are randomly becoming available. And then also at this time, until something happens differently, is to support Elon Musk and his work that he's doing over at Twitter. Again, I'm skeptically optimistic. Can't talk tonight. Sorry. Optimistic about what he's doing with Twitter. There's still wait and see out there. There are several things that we have to consider. Okay. There's a rhyme and a reason behind everything that's taking place at this time. So we'll have more on this. I'll continue to monitor the stream. Won't do anything tonight. May recap everything and look at it tomorrow's. Yes, I heard that Elon is considering a phone to launch, and I support competition. I support any competition that's out there. I think that's something that keeps the checks and balances of corporations, and we know for the last several years we've seen a lot of consolidation. Amazon, Walmart, really limited, right now in terms of the competition, and basically government deciding which corporations succeed and which companies don't succeed. So, all right, well, listen, I want to thank you for tuning in to this open mic cast. There's a discussion that takes place is just, again, as we head into 2023, just a new media concept and platform that's evolving, looking to kind of change away from just more of the monologue type conversation and really open it up to a larger audience and getting more audience participation. With this one, there wasn't much time to really put out information and seek out earlier participants, just because it's late breaking. But I do keep a channel over in the Discord, the Rogue Discord. If you want to jump into the Rogue Discord, drop me an email, cj@roguenews.com. Everyone enjoy the rest of your evening. Going to be closing this one out. Stay safe and God bless. Take care, everyone. Thank you.